So one has two, is that correct? Yes. Amendment number 3, interior cleaning.
Yes.
You're never coming in.
I'm sorry. I didn't forward it.
It's I no.
I knew I forgot something.
I see Ms. Cushingberry has her command and control center layout in effect today.
Ingrid is getting ready to log in. She thought we had changed the time to 4.
You said Mr. Smith is in this committee?
Yes.
Waiting
He's
for
on.
him, but
No.
No, he's on.
he's on the ready.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
We're unmuted, Edwin. It's just.
Sorry, y'all. How's everyone doing?
Doing great. How are you?
Sorry about that. I don't know. I thought the thing said 4 o'clock, and I just got done. Okay, so we're late. I don't know if the meeting's already been called to order or.
No, we were waiting on you.
Sorry about that. Okay, let's call this meeting to order. Robin, since I don't have my thing right, can you put the agenda up on the screen?
Yeah.
I'm a little coming in a little flustered. Okay.
See?
Yep, I see it. All right.
Oh,
The
it
meeting
says that says call to order for you. Were right on that thing.
Okay,
It's
good.
just-
I knew I saw 4 o'clock somewhere, and I was like, "Oh, they must have changed." Okay, good.
Yeah.
I'm not losing my mind. But
No.
apparently, my 2 fellow board members were smarter than me. So, if we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which she stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. And I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Mr. Smith, can you second that?
Yeah, I second that.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Catching enough. Here I come.
Aye.
Okay, perfect. 3-0.
Yeah.
Do we have any public comments?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Then without further ado, we'll go to, we need a motion to approve the technology committee meeting minutes from October when we last met. And Mr. Ney was not on the committee at that point.
No, it was Mr. Dallas and Mr. Smith.
So Mr. Smith, I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. All right. Now we're on to item 3, discussion of staff training and plans for the year. Is that you, Mr. Shohan? Hello?
Sorry about that.
No. I thought it was, I'm a little flustered, so I thought that was me. Wait, did we lose you again?
No.
Okay.
Sorry, give me 1 second.
Hello there, Madam Chair.
Hey, Mr. Carlton, how are you?
Doing great, man.
Yeah,
Is that the same?
those were, so we had a meeting in November. You had a meeting in November.
I was not present.
Right.
I thought we had one in November.
Yes, you had a meeting in November, but we didn't have the minutes for October. So and I was not here, so we did not do the November. That's why I don't have minutes for the November. But you had a meeting in November. Do you want me to pull that up?
No, we can get that the next one.
No, I mean, do you want to pull up that meeting or?
With that meeting, we basically went back over the software inventory. There was some changes from the October meeting that was requested. We broke it out by the different departments.
Yeah. No, I don't think we need that. We were going to have a whole separate discussion in December regarding staff training and sort of implementation of software, which I'm assuming is what we're talking about today.
I was not privy to that, so let me, can I take a second just to look at what we did in November? Because I didn't have that in front of me before. Sorry, refresh my.
Well,
Do you have this to pull up?
What
I don't know, this is what he handed me.
These were uploaded to the November meeting, but and Colleen didn't make the November meeting.
It was the, okay, I can go back.
are we going to discuss the staff training, or do we want to move on to another agenda item?
Can we come back to it?
Sure. Do you have anything that you're presenting today, Mr. Shohan, or is it just going to be a general discussion?
Just general discussion and any questions y'all had on anything that was submitted back in November.
I know one thing that we talked about in November was trying to look at utilization of software and have a further discussion about that. I had also sent out an email to discuss, paperwork reduction, essentially, which is also ties into utilization. But we can just have, well, why don't we do this? While you're looking to see, because I know you had mentioned December that you had something that you were going to present, and then we ended up canceling the meeting. So if you can find that, we'll do that. If not, why don't myself, Mr. Smith, and Mr. Nade talk about getting us set up now that we have this new committee formed about what we're going to do this year. So we'll come back to you, Mr. Shohan. Is Colleen Beck-Varski in the room?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So if you can find the materials, what we were really interested in is we had the list of software and we had some really good data on it as far as what software we purchased, how much it costs, what schools are using it, kind of what it does. If you can find that, Robin, and pull it up, that might be helpful to refer back to. And then
That's pulled up now.
perfect. I can, but since I ran over here, I don't have my glasses, so I'm squinting.
I'm trying to make it bigger.
No.
And I'll just slide it.
I'll handle it on my end. I've got it. And then we were going to have a talk about how people get trained on this software at the school level. And I think that is what Ms. Beck-Varski oversees. So I don't know if you have any comments you want to make, or if there's anything you can present to the meeting at this time, or if we just want to have a more general discussion about it.
We did have this. I think Robin's looking for something that we put together in November.
Yeah.
Yes. Give us 1 second to get the document pulled up.
Okay.
So that document is not what you want. Correct. I mean, what I have up on screen, not the chart.
No, not the software.
Okay. Let's see.
So while we're looking, let me throw out a question just as a parent using the district software. What is Scribbles? Is Scribbles on our list here?
It's on the software list. It might not be on that one because it's not paid through technology services. It's the school choice software program. So it's the one that's used when parents register for a specific program of choice.
It's also used for Riverview Lottery. to help, to help pick
So
selection.
this is one of my questions. Why do we not use PowerSchool for that? Why do we use a separate software for school choice?
So Power School did not have the option to select the programs in the manner that we needed the data to come in. And really the data services department would know the exact reasons of what doesn't come in and what doesn't. We would have to talk to them. But from my understanding that Power School did not provide the data input that we needed to choose the specific schools in the manner that they needed the data to pull through. So they have Scribble strictly for choice and Power School is for enrollment into the school that you choose.
Okay. So you think PowerSchool either didn't have the functionality or it didn't have as good a functionality as Scribbles?
Yeah, from my understanding, when they looked at it, it didn't have the functionality to do choice.
Because looking at other, one of the issues I have is our registration process seems very idiosyncratic between schools. I know we use PowerSchool, but sort of how we upload documents, proof of registration, how we communicate through that. And I've looked at other districts and I feel like people are getting more out of their PowerSchool than we are in terms of how we use it to register and do it online. Do we have fully online registration for schools, or do they all have to come in person at some point?
Yeah, no, they do have fully online. If we have fully online registration, yes.
And even if the person, the family does not have a computer or something, we do have kiosks set up in the front of most schools that they can, the school social worker will help those families register.
Okay. Because my personal experience is it's still kind of a disaster and everyone has to come in and do a bunch of stuff.
Madam Chair, if you can avoid words over 5 syllables, I'm a Marine, play drums, I appreciate it.
Victor, I don't buy that. What did I use that was over 5 syllables?
Idiosyncratic is 6 syllables.
Oh, okay. But it's such a great word. I mean, Mr. Nay, you have a May River High School student. What is the registration process at May River? Do you have a back to school night and everyone comes in and brings their paperwork and pays their fines and all that kind of stuff?
I'm ashamed to say that my wife does most of that. I do show up, like she handles all the online portion. And then I'm the one that shows up the day of and brings my daughter in and we roam the halls and find classes and pick up her last minute stuff and grab her computer. So there is an online portion and there is an in-person portion.
Okay.
Some of the schools do handle that a little differently. Some of the schools start doing like a pre-registration night up to a week or two before school starts to go ahead and start getting those devices out to make it a little seamless for the first week of school.
Yeah, that's what my experience has been. Yeah, and one of the reasons I brought up we should talk about paperwork is when my son signed up for athletics, I had to go online and print out all this paperwork. I'm like, first of all, I should be able to do this all online. Second of all, I had to sign about 20 places. And I'm like, what? I literally signed more for my son to play tennis at the high school level than I did for my mortgage.
You could do digital.
The athletic packet is not.
Athletics different.
I have a middle schooler, so I understand. I had to do the same thing.
It's digital.
Yeah, I've actually talked to
Yeah, they're working on that.
about it.
So that you do digital signature.
Now we have an athletic director.
Oh, my.
Taken care of.
Thank you.
This goes to my discussion that I think we need to have on utilization. I mean, we've got this software, we spend a fair amount of money on it. It's kind of crazy that you have to run around, print this stuff out, sign. I mean, I had to sign it. He had to sign it probably 10 or 12 times. And I mean, we do this every year and I understand that you need to, renew your stuff, but a lot of that information could be pulled out of PowerSchool, pre-filled, you know what I mean? Do we not do any e-signing of any kind? It's just, for me, it's, as when you're a busy parent, it's hard to have all this stuff. And then the kid's running around with this pack, you got to make sure he gets it in and turns it in to some person that handles it. It just seems odd that in 2024, I don't know what word to use other than idiosyncratic. We are that paper dependent.
The document that they're wanting is up on the screen.
All right.
Do I need to make it bigger?
No, I got it. Okay, so Ms. Beck-Vimarsky, you want to just talk about what's on this document?
Yeah, so I put together a little bit ago, so I apologize if I'm kind of a little back on it. So what we put together was just sort of like the big picture idea on how we pull training in or what software programs come through, and then how we decide how training will roll out. It really kind of depends on the program itself, the department that it's coming from, and then who the end user is going to, what the impact is at the school level or the district level. So kind of looking at the progress is where I'll kind of jump to, because you know the importance of training and how vastly important it is for everybody. But every plan is really individual. We try to make it as unique to the need as possible, because that tends to vary depending on what department it's coming from and the contract terms. So you saw in that software doc where we had like the company representative conducts the training versus us in-house. So depending on how the department has initiated the contract, sometimes the training comes directly from the company, and then other times it might be that we assist moving forward, or we're the primary trainer. So we have a varying method depending on what the software program is and what the specific need and rollout goal might be. So the initiating department, they indicate what that plan might be and what the use for that software is. And then between technology services and educational technology, we sort of work with them to figure out what's the best support method to get to their end goal. Prior to any purchase, technology services and ed tech, we do request to be a part of that review process. And most of the times we are invited to those meetings to help see ahead of the game of which, you know, implications we may find on our network, or, you know, what would work in coinciding with the educational programs that are already in place, or the processes that the department already has and how that might work technically as well. So that makes sure that we can check things ahead of time before a decision or a contract is conducted. We do ask for those to be submitted every single year, so that, you know, as technology changes and updates and things happen, that we can review it again. We see even within a few months of saying, okay, that a software company will make some changes that could potentially, you know, change whitelistings or how it works on the network. So we at least look at them annually and more often if needed. And then training from the company representative is often included in the purchase. More than likely, when they purchase or come into a contract with a software company, they build in professional development from the company from the beginning. So that'll usually be a line item of some kind within the agreement with the company themselves. How often and the delivery is discussed at that initial meeting with the company. And then many times where educational technology comes in, so that's my department through ISD, is that, you know, we'll look at it and decide if a train the trainer method is the most viable, which is a really great way for us to be as familiar as possible on any program or software that needs to affect a school or district level employee, that we can become, if nothing else, support. So if we're not the primary trainers, which many of them we are, then we're that support factor for them. So we always ask if there's a train the trainer portion available, and if not, can we be included in any initial training so that we have at least some background knowledge so that we're able to support the end user in any manner. We do create a catalog of trainings that my team provides. So the ones that we are the primary trainer for, we provide a catalog annually to the schools so they can see what training we do have available, what they can choose from, whether it's an in-person training, whether it's a virtual, like on demand. We have an on-demand class so people can take it at their own pace, or both. So the potential of them being one, the other, or both is on there, and that's all kind of laid out in our catalog for the schools to use when they're creating their PD plans. So The long list of software that you initially got, that line that says, how do we get training on there, that sort of dictates whether we're heading to the company to figure out how we're going to do the training, or if educational technology is the primary trainer, then that is one that would be available in our catalog. So sort of like the big picture of how training comes through. And then we can, take any questions that you might have around it.
Thank you. Mr. Nay or Mr. Smith, do you have any questions?
Not right now. Still trying to absorb everything. First time on.
Yeah, you're kind of coming in mid-conversation. Mr. Smith, do you have any questions for Ms. Beckenvarsky?
Not at this moment.
Okay, I have a couple. One, and I'm sorry, I'm still in the process of pulling up all my information, but some of these say you have the initial training and then the target training, which it looks like for the most part it's the same. But let's look at well, I guess that's all part of Destiny Resource Manager. One question I have as far as doing the initial and the training. When it's an ongoing training, like to me, the core programs are the ones that everyone's using. Is that part of our standard summer professional development, like with Power School, with Destiny's our library program, but some of the bigger district-wide programs, is that automatic when they have every year to update people on that? Because with turnover, what I found to be the case often is that there's one or two people that know a certain software, and if they're not there, there's not a lot of redundancy in the system.
Yeah, so our summer training, we do hit some of the biggest programs. So ClassLink, we spend a lot of time in. We get into Google and Google Classroom, but some of the specific ones to their individual programs. So for example, if I'm a science teacher and I need, my primary program might be the online tech book, that might not be the same as the person sitting next to me who's an art teacher. So some of those specific ones we don't cover in our initial summer training with new hires, just because they are so specific. But we show them how they can get a hold of us, and we even actually have the coaches perform that training, so they have their calendars, you can set stuff up with them ahead of time. We also get them into our online self-paced Google Classroom, so they can start to take some on their own if they prefer that method. And we have a lot of people that do take advantage of that in the summer. So they're able to start to get familiar with their specific programs that way. But then for the beginning of the year, there are some of those primary ones that we have to hit. Specifically around hardware, so they all have box light panels in their room. So we go over a little bit of that in the summer training, but then we make sure at the very beginning of the year that we pull all new teachers during that first week that they're back and give them at least an idea of the hardware that's in their room. This year will include, some of the mic system if it's installed in their room, and any of the things they need to get off the ground running for day one. And a lot of times the coaches will start to build sort of like a custom plan to get certain teachers up to speed, and the school does that as well. So our support for new hires, we try to see exactly what they need and then custom it for them as much as possible. But those big ticket ones, we grab at the first week of school and then some during the summer.
And you said the word coaches. That's obviously a role in the district. How many coaches do we have?
I currently have 7, I believe.
Okay, I think we talked about
funded, so I'm trying to think through. One was ESSER funded, so I have 7 right now.
Okay, and I think we talked about this before, that they are not location based; they are basically on a dispatch model, right? So they're not assigned to certain schools.
No, so what we've done, they all have what we call their communication schools. So they're assigned schools that they're the primary point of contact, but they can travel to any location for any need and for any reason based on whatever might be needed at the time.
Yeah, and it's just hard for me to imagine, as someone that implements a lot of software, that 7 people in 32 schools, that seems like a big workload for, ongoing training with that. When there's a problem, and I think I shared my experience with Power School. I had an issue as a parent, and basically they cut and pasted how to get a hold of Power School support and put that on the document. how much ongoing, like on-demand type of training when someone's struggling or at registration and there's a problem, how much of that are we able to handle? Because it seems like there's not 7 people does not seem like enough, especially at the beginning of the school year.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, we never know until we're asked, to be quite honest, because we're not everywhere. We can't get to 30 locations like you said.
Yeah.
So I don't see a whole lot of those requests at the beginning of the year around registration, so to speak, because that's usually done in the summer, which are not months that they work. Because they are on a teacher contract. So they don't work during those times where it's the primary parts of registration. So usually that's myself, and I have one coordinator that works with me that we take care of the summer load. But beyond that, it just varies depending on if it's a new system. If we have a lot of new enrollment, then we'll see an uptick in something particularly like that.
Right.
But honestly, we just do our best to get wherever we can as fast as we can.
And then do you guys have a ticket system, obviously, for like hardware problems? Do you have one for people where they have like a software customization or an issue with their user permissions or something like that? Do you guys handle those kinds of tickets?
Yeah, so we're in the same system as the IT is the technician, so we're all in one.
Okay.
That way we're able to communicate back and forth, because a lot of times we'll get a request and we need to eliminate that it's a hardware issue. So
sorry.
No, you're fine.
So you have basically one IT ticketing system, and it deals with both hardware and software. I would love to see like how many tickets we're getting based on software, like how big of an issue. Because I pretty much feel like from my experience on the ground and my experience with dealing with sort of complex software and different things, that this is an area where it seems like we would need more support. If you're relying on PowerSchool to manage all your registrations and you can't get it to work, it can really bring, and I will tell you, I've had that experience as well. And some of this is anecdotal, but I also see it as systemic, where basically you just get a message, there's nothing we can do, So I'm kind of trying to get my hands around how much training we're providing up front, how many problems we have with software. I mean, you expect to have, a fair number of problems. That's just part of it. And then how easy it is to access support. Because what I've also heard from different teachers and parents over the years is that sometimes they just stop using the software. So this is all kind of trying to tie into like, utilization and, efficiency of the system. So do you have some way to report out to us on, not the specific tickets, but just general information? How many are software related? How many are hardware related? Are there certain schools, like high schools versus middle schools, that sort of thing? Is that an easy report to run?
Yes, basically I just finished pulling some reports for my budget analysis. We roughly do about 24,000 tickets a year in technology services. And that's not counting all the imaging during the summer. So every summer we re-image every student computer. So if you added that to it, we would be at about 23,000 extra on top of that. But on a given year, we do anywhere from about 21 to about 24,000. I can dissimulate that sum by category, so I could be able to break out just software and hardware tickets for you.
I do have something I want to add to that, Rob, at this point, whenever you're ready for me, Ms. Right?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Also, just in terms of the 7 coaches that she has, also, let's be mindful that we do have an IT person in every single building. That their job is specifically IT, so I'm sure at some point in time, they assist with those tickets and everything that is going on as well.
Do we have a dedicated IT support in every building?
No, we have a dedicated IT support in every high school, every middle school, every academy school. As for our elementary schools, a technician can support anywhere from 2 to 3 elementary schools, depending on the student count there. So like north of the Broad, usually they handle 3 elementary schools, because usually the student counts anywhere between 300 and 600. But if it's, we generally try to follow the state recommendation of a technician for every 1,000 students. We get close to that. We've noticed that once a school gets about 800-900, it's worth it to go ahead and put a technician there because of the daily tickets. But we do also move our technicians some. So if we have a big issue at another site and they're caught up on all of their tickets, sometimes they will jump in and help another school get caught up. So.
And I would assume that IT person is going to troubleshoot the network and all that kind of stuff. Are they trained in the software as well?
They're trained in some, but let me tell you, Miss Colleen's group is more well suited for the instructional applications. And then they also integrate teacher training along with it, especially for our young teachers with the district.
Well, if they're not, that would bring me some concern because then I would be wondering, are we getting the best utilization out of our people? Because I think that during the summer times, having all these programs, I think that all our IT people should be trained in all these programs that we do have. I mean, we want well-rounded people. We want to get more bang for our buck. So if they're not trained and they can't tell you how to navigate through these programs, and for me, that's a little concerning. I'm just going to put that out there.
Okay. Mr. Nay, did you have anything you wanted to, are you still absorbing?
No, sorry. I was actually reading through the that list of software.
Yeah.
To an extent, I don't know that if I can agree wholly with Mr. Smith, but there's 120 programs there.
Yeah.
That's like somebody learning how to play 120 instruments. That's a pretty daunting task for so I can see specialization, where a tech is specialized in 10 or 12 programs, but for everybody to learn 120 programs, I think that's beyond realistic. And the only other thing I was just adding up, we pay over $6 million in all these licensing fees every year? It looked like most of them are every year.
Some of them are not. We have that broken out on term. It's about halfway through the stack. Some of these are paid once every 5 years, once every 3 years, once every 4 years. Some are yearly.
Thank you for clarifying. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Also, just to run it back, in terms of those 7 coaches, so what are the job descriptions of those 7 coaches again now?
So they're educational technology coaches. So their primary responsibility is to support the teachers and the students in the classroom to utilize the software.
And what does that look like?
It can look a bunch of different ways. So it starts from, formal training to one-on-one training with the teacher to coming in and co-teaching with a class. So if a teacher has a project, I want to make ebooks. I want our kids to create a story using Adobe Creation. So they use images. A coach might come in and show them how to use the software while the teacher helps to pull in the educational content standards. So it can be a bunch of different ways.
Right. So out of all these programs, how much of these are these 120 programs? How much of these programs do these coaches understand and how they're working with?
The ones that are labeled as instructional are our focus, but we do try to make sure we're at least familiar with any and all that any end user would use. So if I'm an office manager and I don't know how to use Bright Arrow, it's considered a business application, but they're familiar enough to help somebody, get familiar with it or start to use it or troubleshoot with them. So I think it's important that they at least have some base knowledge of as many of these as possible, but we focus on the instructional ones. So that minimizes that list a little bit to pull that down a little bit smaller for those 7 coaches. But I try to stress to them that we still need to at least have an idea of the system so that we're able to support any staff members that also needs to use the software.
Okay.
And it is a give and take back and forth between the 2 departments. I mean, the technicians do know a little bit about each piece of software, but we focus more on the hardware side of it and the interactions back with the network, the wireless, the wired side of the network, getting through the firewall. When Ms. Beck's group really focuses on the teacher integration side and the educational side.
We also have to keep in mind too that, we're not the professional on how somebody wants a specific one to be used. So for example, like the science textbook, we can help them know how to navigate it, how to assign to your class. Here's how you can pull it in. But if the science coordinator has a specific method they want to follow, we want to make sure that we're delivering the correct message. So we may direct them to them to say, here's how you can use it, here's everything you need to get it functioning. Let's go ahead and see how they want you to put it in practice 100%. So we work between ISD, IT, you know, and ourselves to make sure that we're giving the teachers the whole picture.
Right.
As much as possible. But then there's some of these business apps that are very specific to say finance. We're not going in to train somebody on the finance software, really, finance owns that.
Right.
But they can go and help them, oh, let's go to file print, this is how you can print what you need, or here's how you can, you know, send a ticket in if you're confused, whatever it might be. So the coaches are really there to coach and be as helpful as possible and get to a point to their capacity and then help them find the resources beyond it if they can.
And just to go back off of what I said earlier, I do stand on what I said because of the fact of from my IT background, when I did something even with the sensors, yes, we worked on hardware, but we were still required to go to the classes and understand. So when someone called us in and asked us how to perform a duty or how to perform or how the function of a program work, then we did take classes on that so that we could inform so that they could take the program in any direction that they may wanted to know wanted to go. But we were responsible to learn the basics of the programs and the functions and how to get them where they need to go and how to get them navigate through that program. So regardless to Revelation 120, no one may not know how to do the 120, but you may know how everyone has their strong point. Some people may be strong, and in other words, for instance, you may have a math program. Some people may be stronger in algebra. Some people may be stronger in geometry. There's certain everyone has their strong points, but throughout the department, everyone should be strong, and the department should cover every single piece of what we're paying for. So that is my point, and I still stand by that. And one function should be able to help. This should be able to help the next. These departments should be able to work together and get that done. And everyone should be able to fill in holes or blanks when someone else is not there and they don't understand. That's my point.
Okay. And then, okay, so one thing I think we still need some more information on utilization. I think that some of the ticketing reporting might help. You know, the other thing is, for me, is looking at all this software. Are we getting the most out of the software that we have? And I have done some comparisons to some other districts like Lexington One and Greenville. And these are schools I think have been technology forward for the state of South Carolina. And I think that we could, you know, that basically how we're implementing the software, which goes into training, which goes into utilization, right? So like you said, it's very dependent school to school, how they're using, it seems like, or not very dependent, it is somewhat dependent school to schools, how they're using it. So from a tech perspective, you know, generally speaking, you have like a use case, you have a workflow, you have a process map that you would use when you implement this software, right? Like this is how we do registration. Do we have anything like that at a district level, or do we expect anything like that at a school level?
You say that one more time, that last part about the flow. I just want to make sure I understand.
So, you know, when you do like a CRM or a, you know, enterprise software, which I guess you'd call PowerSchool kind of like a CRM type of situation. I know it's like a learning system, but when you've got these sort of complex integrated software modules, so I'm thinking of the big ones, the ones that are like the one-offs, you know, the math programs, the different like more very specific programs. I'm talking about more of the frontline PowerSchool, Scribbles, these different things that run big applications within the school. You would generally have, when you're implementing them, have like a workflow, have a process map, have something where this is what the software is supposed to do, you know, type of thing. And I think from my observation and from talking to different people over the years, the schools kind of make their own workflow and they use the software the way they see fit, right? Like, so it's a very customized, is that better, Mr. May? It's a very customized program for each school. But I'm wondering, do we have anything like that? Because if you're going to train someone, the first thing you got to understand, if you're one of 7 coaches and you're taking care of 30 some schools, is there should be some sort of documentation. Do the schools have documentation for, you know, workflow and process maps or any use cases, anything like that, like how they're using the software? Or is it more of a like responsive, this isn't working, can you fix it?
So I think it's a little bit of both. So the schools have to do a professional development plan and they have their goals that they set every year. So whatever the principal or the leadership team may decide is sort of their goal for the year, it might tack into specific programs at a certain time. Okay, right? So like if their goal is to, increase their use of a specific program, then that would be very direct, where, it might just be a broader type thing. However, some of these bigger items like ClassLink and, Power School, right, are some of the ones that are sort of like everybody should be doing pretty much the same thing across the board. That's where we do come in. And then these are our standard ones that you should have the base knowledge of to be functioning, right? So that's really what we try to make sure that everybody does have that. And typically, because it does repeat year to year, we tend to focus on the new teachers coming in and out unless there's a major change. But we always offer those refresh options and things like that for them to ensure that those baseline ones are covered. But the specific ones, like you're saying, those smaller ones or those kind of one-offs, those are really kind of dictated on the school goals, and we can pull into the PD plan as the principal or the leadership team or the instructional coaches at the level need us to. So it's a little bit of both depending on what the program is. So it is that custom thought to make sure that the end goal is reached.
Yeah, it just seems like it would be useful in terms of making sure that so I guess it would be useful for me if I was looking, and I do a much smaller job than you guys do, right? You guys have this, amazingly complex organization. So I want to recognize that up front. And I think our network has been fantastic. I think our security is fantastic. And I think that, the job you guys are doing is fantastic. So, I want to recognize that up front. But at the same time, the sense I have from looking at this, if you're evaluating, and like Mr. Ney said, we're spending millions of dollars annually on this software and making sure that we're getting what we need to get out of it. I don't feel like there's a lot of standardization of the process, which when you ask someone like, okay, well, how much are we utilizing this software? How would you guys even determine utilization? Do you guys have a way to determine how much parents are using Power School? We talked about, and it was kind of a funny story, Mr. Shohan, Dyno. It was not 580,000, but it was, a certain amount of money that you think only 60% of teachers guesstimate are actually using it. And so I think maybe application by application, but is there any way to assess the utilization of this software?
So we have a couple of different ways that we look at utilization, specifically about instructional software. I can't speak to every single business app because they're not ones that we tend to have access to if they're specific to a department. But as far as a lot of the instructional softwares, we get usage feedback directly from the company if we can't pull it ourselves annually so that we can see, what reports they're able to provide for us based on use. But ClassLink also does provide a lot of that information for us. So if it's a web-based application that's being accessed through ClassLink, then we can get some analytics from that. And actually Dyno gives us some of those analytics as well. So those two products, along with direct reports from the companies, give us some of that utilization information that's put into our review before we go annually to submit a budget. So we look at that and see, is use being, sufficient enough to continue it, or is it worth it kind of concept.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think the other thing that would be so interesting, and if anyone else wants to speak up, just holler, because I don't see any hands up, but, and Mr. Colton, Mr. Dallas here.
I would mind jump when you
jump in.
It sounds like we're almost asking, or what we're wanting is a task analysis to understand. And then my question comes into when you were talking about in terms of understanding how much they're utilizing these publisher utilizations of these programs and how these programs are being integrated into the daily lesson plans. From listening to her speak, my question would be to her, is to the staff is, what's that process like in terms of the process in administrators telling the coaches what program they want to utilize in the school. What does that look like, and how much information is given, and when they get the information, what does that look like? Because you can tell us, hey, for instance, for example, this year here we want to do more. We want our kids to do more research-based programs in terms of biology or science program or whatever. But basically, my point is basically they're telling them what they want to do. So therefore, technology steps in and say, okay, well, technology offers these programs here based upon this, that, and the third. Based upon the information, you can go to Google, or you may go to this website, or this program here is better. We found this program to be best for research. So going back to what she said about the administrative staff tell them what they want to do. What is that? My question is, I think we need to start. Our basis is, what does that process look like? Because I think that will better help us to understand what is really going on, and also what function do the district have at the district level? Do we have to understand how many of our programs are being utilized? And which almost it seems like we need to add a task analysis in there, so that we can know when they're utilizing the programs.
Well, that's interesting. And let me see if I understand what you're asking, Mr. Smith, because I think you and I are on the same line of questioning. So you're saying that basically not only should we look at utilization, but academic impact, student impact of these programs? Is that what you were talking about?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that was,
that's good.
yeah, that's 100% what I was wondering too, is like, I want to know utilization, but I also want to know, like, if you look at, and were you on the meeting, Mr. Smith, and we talked about Dino, which is that it's a great program where basically the teacher can see what the other kids are doing on their laptops. And so if some kid's off task, they can actually block that website, which I think that's a really intriguing piece of technology. And so if 60% of the teachers are using it, it's not enough to, from my point, to say, okay, well, 40% aren't using it, so is it worth it? I would like to know, and I don't know how, this is a big time data question, is there an academic impact for the 60% of the teachers? Are they having better results in their classroom as a result of this software? Because you can compare it to the 40%. So I think, to your point, utilization is not just how much is being used, but for those who are using it, how much is the, reading and writing, academic, bread and butter impact to our students?
Right.
So, Mike, I guess I'm not sure. I don't think this is a Mr. Shohan question, because you're sort of the hardware end, but to Ms. Beck-Unvarsky, is there a way to look at these academic programs? And another thing that I think would be great is to look at how many parents have actually set up logins for PowerSchool, because PowerSchool will actually let you know if your kid's absent, late on their assignments, what grade they got on their last test. So as a parent, you can stay kind of engaged in what's going on with your kids. And I just wonder how many parents are actually, you have to set up an account. How many parents are actually setting up that account?
So as far as PowerSchool, that's really run through the data services department. We don't have access to that specific information. So that would be a question for that department. So that would be maybe an academic committee, I think is where they would have those sort of utilization. So since that's one they control, I wouldn't have that information to
Gotcha.
But to your other question, looking at specific software, I think, we need to keep in mind too that to pinpoint growth to one specific software program is almost impossible, just because of so many other factors to it. Like I wouldn't want to say that just because 60% use Dino, their academic improved more than the 40 that didn't. Like, because it could have been they used 2 other programs in collaboration with it. It's always been a really tricky thing to try and pinpoint down what is making the true impact, unless it's the only factor that changed, which is never the case. So I just wanted to make sure that, we recognize that it is a very hard target to hit. But there are data points that can help us look at, where we are seeing utilization. We get feedback from the teachers every year on what they find the most impact in their instruction and not. So that is a huge point for us. So we try to get the ones that we know would give us the most information to make the most informed decisions.
And we would definitely want to bring Dr. Stratus and or bring this over to the academics committee, because her group is going to know a lot of the interaction between the school setting up master schedules and the software that's being utilized based on the schedules of those schools.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, to me, it's like there's the hardware, then there's the software, which is the data collecting. But as board members, what I'm really interested in is, I'm interested in what software we're using and how we're using it, but I'm also really interested in that data that comes out, right? But it sounds like, that's sort of in a different department. All right. Mr. Dallas, you have been awfully quiet over there.
I have been enjoying the conversation. I had one question which everyone has touched on, which is utilization. Because I think, the more granular we can be about that, the better we can begin to move to what Ms. Becky Ungarsku was alluding to about matching the training with the effectiveness. So I think that would be something that would be extremely worthwhile. I really was fascinated by the topic raised by Mr. Smith and fleshed out by you, Madam Chair, in the sense that it may be we cannot establish causation, a very precise causation, but if we were able to begin to track who's on the software and using it versus those kids that are not, it may be directional, even though it may not have the precision of saying this necessarily causes it. So I don't know, maybe there's some professors somewhere that would be interested in maybe helping the school district do an analysis like that.
Thank you. Mr. Nay?
I got nothing. Thank you.
Okay, fair enough. All right, well,
Alright.
so
Let me ask you a question. In terms of these softwares versus the we have basically we have a program fees versus software. At some point, I would like to see a breakdown of cost of the actual equipment that we're buying for technology and actually how much we're paying for software. Because I think at some point there has to be a cap somewhere, because the longer the more we intend to buy programs that we may feel deemed that are necessary to help teach our students, that could grow real large, and if it's not being looked at, then I think that could cause that could cause some concerns as well too, because also I think that would also help focus more on the programs that we have, because now it's almost like your menu when you go out to eat. The first thing the waiter when she comes to the table, she give you a menu. So if you have less, or you have more of a concentrated menu, then you focus more on what you have versus saying, well, hey, if you go to Pizza Hut, you say, well, hey, look, I want some hamburgers and hot dogs. Pizza Hut don't sell that item. So when you go there, the menu tells you exactly what you have. I think that I think we should focus more on our menu and what we have in this district versus sustaining what we have, and I'll look forward to not adding so much, or if we're we're taking away something, because another program is going to be strong and better and can help our students basically achieve more. So I just think that those are things that we should also be looking at in terms of this process here as well.
So I have one other question I want to touch on. I think the general theme is, finding out a little bit more in terms of utilization. And I'm sorry, this has been kind of a flustered meeting, but we're kind of kicking off this next year. And what I just sort of want to look at is how we're using all this software in the school district. Right now, we have so many, 160 programs, and a lot of them are just small, little specialized programs to help in different things, and I'm good with that. And there's so many programs out there that they're constantly trying to get districts to adopt. So I just thought it was that this year maybe we could look at what kind of data we can get out of this software, how it can impact, the academics, while staying in the technology lane and not, veering into the academic committee lane. One other question I had, though, was we had talked about how do we know if teachers are satisfied with the level of support they're getting for the software? And obviously, some people are very comfortable with software and some people hate it, don't want to touch it, never use it. So I know we had mentioned that there was the survey. What's it called? Starts with a P, the one that Alice Walton does. What's the one we do, Robin, at the end of the year? The big culture survey.
We haven't been doing that.
She does a survey quarterly.
Is it quarterly? What's it called again?
Upbeat.
Upbeat is done quarterly.
It had a P in it.
About the culture. Yes, that's Upbeat, and that's done quarterly.
And we had talked about trying to do some sort of way to reach out to the teachers about if they felt like they had enough support, especially if we're talking about budgeting. Do they feel like, because I know from my personal experience dealing with people who don't like technology, a lot of times if they don't understand it or they get frustrated with it, they just stop using it. And we may not know that that's the reason for the fact that they're not using it. So is there any way, and we had talked about possibly doing a survey through the technology department or through Upbeat, but I don't want to get on this topic now because we didn't have this on our agenda or anything. But can you bring that back to the next meeting to think about how we might assess how well the teachers feel like they have support from on the software? Because it's hard for me to imagine that 7 people can manage, all this complex software. And from what I've seen in the community, people just get frustrated and don't use it. And then I wonder also at a further meeting, could we talk about training for parents or kids? The kids are pretty good with that stuff, but it can be really, really frustrating. I don't know if Mr. Nays had that experience, or he could call his wife and see if she'll back me up. But I'm pretty comfortable with technology, and there are times where it's so frustrating. I can't get something to work. There's a password. There's something that doesn't happen. What are resources for parents if they are struggling with using something like Power School, or they're trying to help their kids, not totally random example, print something out of their personal device? Because I think we've made it, with all the security, which is absolutely essential, and with all the complexity of software, we're making it really hard for the average person to just sort of get in there and figure out how to work it. So if we could come back as we move forward this year with looking at how satisfied teachers, and not just teachers, but school level staffing is with the support and training they have, or if they feel like they would benefit from more, because I'm just genuinely curious. And if we do feel like they're more, and this is a $6 million annual investment, then I think we need to include that possibly in a budget in terms of if there are more people needed. And then if there's any options that we have for like parent university type programs, so that parents can come in and learn how to access stuff for their kids, or help their kids with, especially the younger kids when they come home and they have homework and they're frustrated with their Google Classroom or something. Did those seem like reasonable things that you guys could bring back?
Absolutely. I will say that most of the schools themselves do a parents' night training for how to like go into Power School, some of the different software applications. But yes, we can get some information.
Are you sure
Also,
about that?
Yeah, some schools do that. Now, I'm familiar with that. Some schools do have that for those nights for parents to come and do that. But also alongside of that, I've listened to what you just listed. But just to bring the refocus and to tie our board business into this committee and into what we do as a whole, as in academics, technology, and everyone else, and to do the board work. I think that is very important to understand why we're doing the work that we're doing. And that's why I brought the points that I brought up a few minutes ago about understanding how much we're spending on the actual equipment of technology and the actual programs of technology, and what that looks like, and what those price tags are, and also in terms of I guess we have the menus right now, because you said that there's 160 programs. Is that correct, Mrs. Borat?
Yeah, I didn't count them. We were just sort of eyeballing it.
Okay. Okay. Well, I would kind of like to know exactly how many programs that the district does have, because
it's on that list. I can count it. I just
November 4th folder.
Okay, so I think how much we're spending and what the Mr. Campbell was not done.
Hello?
Oh, I thought Mr. Campbell, and I saw Mr. Campbell when I thought he was saying something. But the return on what we're paying for, I think is very important. And how we tie it all together in terms of academics.
Okay, so I think we got started with this committee round 2 here in 2024. For the gentleman on the Zoom, are there other additional agenda items that you would like to get started with this year?
I think the getting the empirical data is very important. So I'm fine with that as being a first step.
Perfect. Mr. Campbell, I see you're online. Did you have anything you would like to discuss with the technology committee in a future meeting?
I just back and look. You learn a lot when you listen.
Okay, fair enough. And Mr. Nay, I know you're brand new to the committee. Is there anything you'd like to add on initially here?
I'm sure these points have already been talked about, but I mean, to hit the wave tops, bang for our buck, what kind of results are we seeing from the instructional programs that we have? And number two, redundancy. As things go in and out of, some program gets updated, and so teachers start using that one. But even though something else did, I think Mr. Smith touched on it. But yeah, just bang for our buck and redundancy.
Okay. All right. And then if possible, the training we have for parents available, and it may be, I would be curious to know how many schools do a parent night type of thing. I've never personally witnessed one, so it could just be my personal experience. But I do think that it would be helpful to have some sort of parent training available, or at least parent information. And then let's see, there was one other thing. We're talking about the possibility of looking to see if at the school level they feel like the district is giving them enough support on the software. I think that's enough to get us started for sure. But I thank you both for bringing this information forward. And I love this software list. It's just a really good jumping off point for all of these conversations.
So you want your next meeting, schedule your next meeting?
Yes, let's go ahead and get it on the schedule, because I know it's hard to get everyone together. So
The second Monday you have been meeting, do you want to meet the first Monday or the second Monday of each month?
well, we'll go, if it's okay with everybody else, we'll just do the first, since we're kind of already on the first.
Okay, the next one would be Monday, April 1st.
Sounds good. Does that work for Mr. Name and Mr. Smith?
That's not spring break weekend, is it?
That's not, oh, you know what? That's the weekend after Easter Sunday, right?
It's the first day after Easter, it's Easter, the Monday.
But it's a regular school day, so.
Yeah, okay, I'm about that.
3 o'clock?
Yep.
Okay.
And I apologize for coming in late. I saw that 4 o'clock and just kind of assumed it had gotten changed in all the conversation, so I apologize.
Figure out in what area that pops up in, because where it was changed at 3, it shows us 3, but when I pulled it up on the screen, it shows 4. So we have to go into community and figure out where that is, so that it can get changed at the same time.
Well, let's just say the first Monday of the month at 3 o'clock, unless we hear otherwise. That way I won't feel I feel like a little bit it's been trying to find a date and time. So that'll help me make sure it's all organized. But thanks to both of you.
The first or the 8th?
The first.
Gotcha.
First, Monday, April 1st.
Got it. Thank you.
And again, my goal with all this is, I think technology, we should be advancing technology in the district and supporting it and budgeting appropriately. So this information is really helpful. Okay, is there anything else, or should we go ahead and adjourn? Anybody have anything else they want to add?
Informative meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Dallas. All right, excellent. Well, then I'll see you guys tomorrow. And we'll see you all be back here on April 1st at 3 o'clock. And Mr. Schoen, if you do me a favor, if there's anything that materials, send them to me a couple days in advance so I can get them together and get them out to everybody.
Okay.
Thanks so much. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, see you guys later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.